All right, folks, we are live. Welcome to BAM live stream, either number 4 or number 5. I'm not quite sure which one it is. Hey, I'm getting old, so I can't remember these kind of things anymore. I'd like to thank all of you who are attending today's live stream, and I'd like to thank all of you who are watching this in the near future, or maybe in the distant future. Who knows? Well, we've got a lot to cover today, and I'm going to start by saying today is going to be a unique episode. Anytime we do an episode that ends on or runs on the last week of the month, we will be going through a monthly summary. So what you can expect from today is a summary of what happened at Building Automation Monthly this month. You can expect that we will go through the articles that were written and a couple other key pieces of information. And then we'll dive right into tonight's teaching, which, based on popular demand, will continue to be on the subject of IT. And we'll go through that. And then I will give you a update as to a couple more things that are going on. And we'll call it a night. And I'll also take question and answer. So thank you. If you would just let me know who is on. I'm going to see. Maybe I can check that with my phone. You know, it's funny. So I can do computer programming. I can do network design. I cannot figure out for the life of me how to make Facebook work. It's kind of embarrassing. Oh, hey. Look at that. My phone's doing the live stream. I'm trying to click on the image to see if I could see who this is, but I just can't see it. So if you just take a second to go and introduce yourself in the comment section, just so I know who's on and where you're coming at us from. And while you're doing that, I am going to switch over to tonight's presentation. So let me kick that off right here. Here we go. And I will switch that over right here. All right. Building Automation Monthly live stream, August 31st, 2016. So here we go. We're going to go through this. Alrighty. So, August recap. A lot's happened this month. Came up with our mission statement for Building Automation Monthly, and hopefully, you guys feel the same way I do. There's a big gap in our building automation industry as far as talent, as far as folks to replace the people who are retiring, as well as the ability for new people to come into this space. And so I see Building Automation Monthly's mission as providing the best online building automation training to prepare 20,000 people to enter the building automation space by 2025. Ambitious? Yes. But you know what? I think we already provide the best free training out there, and I'm going to continue to do that. And I think we can continue to spread the word and really pass that around to folks. I think we can really make a dent in the talent and just manning gap that is in the building automation industry. All right, so the numbers. What happened this month? Well, I published 9 articles, recorded 5 podcasts, and completed 4 chapters of my new book, and found a really awesome Chuck Norris picture. So it's thumbs and ammo. I mean, come on, it doesn't get any better than thumbs and ammo. That's pretty funny if you ask me. All right, so what are the articles? Well, I'm going to put this PowerPoint into the comments when this is all said and done. But as I said, there are 9 articles. They mainly bounced back and forth between the Learn series and the System Integration series. Those are 2 series I'm running right now. The Learn series ultimately is to teach all the fundamentals around building automation, and eventually all that information will be turned into a course. The Systems Integration 101 is to answer the question around systems integration and really what folks are looking to learn. So right now in the Learn series, we're going through control modes, and we're going to continue to talk about control modes. And then we're going to move on to the next kind of functional area of building automation. My goal is to give everyone what they need, or at least what I think they need. I'm going based on where I screwed things up when I first entered this field, and seeing the things I messed up the most are the things I'm going to teach. That way folks hopefully don't have to go through the pain I went through. Systems Integration 101, we're going to talk through systems integration. Pretty simple. All right. Podcast recap. 5 episodes of the podcast, continuing to find kind of the best way to message, keep it entertaining, not boring, not putting people to sleep while they're driving, hopefully. That would be bad. So we're going to try not to do that. So I'm continuing to knock these out. You'll see 2 podcast episodes coming out every week. That's kind of my new cadence. All right. And now it's time for the big donkey question. Oh my God. Okay. I gotta keep a straight face. What is the biggest challenge you are facing, and what topic would you like me to cover in 2017? So if you can go into the comments right now in the live stream, and if you could just comment and tell me what's the biggest challenge you're facing. Maybe that's as a technician, maybe that's as an owner, maybe that's running a business. Around building automation, what's the biggest challenge you're facing? And then what topic would you like me to cover in 2017? Just go and post that into the comments, and I'm going to move on to the next section while you guys do that. All right. So Building Automation Monthly, Teaching Networks Part 2, or Dux, or however you say that in French. So class is in session. Here's what we covered last week. We talked through VLANs, subnetting, switching, routing, DHCP, and ARP. Well, let's do a brief recap on these. So VLANs stand for virtual LANs, and they're a way of segmenting a physical local area network. So if you think of your house, right? Your house has a bunch of IP devices. Maybe you've got some phones on the wireless. Maybe you've got a TV on the wireless. Well, that is a local area network. It's local to you. Now, a virtual local area network is where you have a local area network, but you slice it up into pieces. It's kind of like a pizza, right? The pizza's all there, and then you make your slices, and now everyone's able to have a little bit of the pizza. Subnetting is how you do a lot of this VLAN stuff. You go and you divide a network. Now, that network's going to need to be able to switch messages between hosts and between the devices on the network. So that's switching. If you need to go outside that network, that's routing. If you need an IP address, you can get it either via static, where you give an IP address, or you can get it via via DHCP, where you get a dynamic address. And ARP, which is the Address Resolution Protocol, is how that address is resolved to the MAC address, which the MAC address is the physical address of the network card on the device you're trying to communicate to. All right. Hello, Fernando. It's good to see you. Awesome, folks. Continue to just let me know who's here. And I'm going to go back for just a second for some of you who just hopped on. What we did is I let you guys know I've released a mission statement for Building Automation Monthly. Talked about the mission statement is to provide the best online building automation training to prepare 20,000 people to enter the building automation space by 2025. That's the mission of Building Automation Monthly. I talked through how we got 9 articles published, recorded 5 podcasts, completed 4 chapters of my new book, and I found a picture of Chuck Norris in Thumbs and Ammo magazine. I can't say that with a straight face. It's just, yes. All right. As the people start to drop out of the live stream, they're like, what the hell? I'm looking at a picture of Chuck Norris. Yes, that's how we do things here, folks. And If you take yourself seriously, you're probably on the wrong live stream. All right. Went through all the different articles that were published. I'm going to share this PowerPoint when we're all said and done. And then I asked the big question. Yes, that is a donkey, formerly known as an ass. What is the biggest challenge you are facing? And then what topic would you like me to cover in 2017? Awesome, Tony. Good to see you here. So feel free to answer that. And then I described what we covered in last week, and I said, all right, here's what we're going to cover in this week's teaching. We're going to go through databases. I'm going to tell you what a database is. We're going to talk about the different database types. I'm going to open up SQL Management Studio, and you're going to be able to see what that looks like. We're going to talk about sequential query language, or SQL. We're going to talk about virtual private networks, or VPNs. We're going to go into a little bit on firewalls, and maybe if we have enough time, we'll go into virtual machines. Alrighty, so let me exit out of the slide deck, open up the drawing pad, and prepare to be amazed by my absolutely atrocious drawing skills. So I'm going to move this ridiculously oversized podcast mic that I really need to buy a mount for. I'm going to throw this Facebook feed to full screen here. All right, and let's go into the teaching. Can you guys hear me good? I'm kind of talking with my mic sideways. Just give me a thumbs up if you can hear me, because I don't want to go too far into this teaching and realize no one's been able to hear a single thing I've been saying. So just thumbs up or a comment, something saying, yep, we can hear you. Wait a second for that. Awesome. Cool. All right. So databases. Let's take a look at databases. So on a scale to 1 to 10, what would you all rate your knowledge of databases at? And while you do that, I'm going to start with the basics. So a database stores tables. And inside these tables, you have rows. And there's other terms for this. There's tuples, which is another way of saying the actual column and row that has data in it. But essentially what happened is a long, long time ago, you had basically page files. So you had this page and there was data on it. Boom, 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 boom. And actually it didn't even look like that. It was actually more like this. It was a page and it was a bunch of ones and zeros. And along the way, someone realized that that's probably not the best way to store data. So what they realized is if they could create a table, and this is oddly familiar to accounting principles. So if they could create a table, and inside this table, maybe we call this table, we're going to use the, you know what, we're not going to use the ever so common employees. Well, we're going to call this table something BAS related. We'll call it VAV boxes. And then in this table, you'd have a series of rows. And on this row, you'd have what is called a primary key. And that primary key is a unique key to identify a VAV box. And what happens here is, let's say you're saying, you know what, we're going to call this VAV 101. And that would be the primary key, and maybe that that key is called controller name. Okay? And then that is your column inside your row. So your row is going this way, and your column is going that way. Okay? So as we build out this table entry, you got your primary key of controller name. Hold on, bear with me, folks. Oops, if I turn off all my stuff. Everything here at Building Automation is live. We don't edit anything. All right, so controller name. And then we've got ZNT, zone temp. And we've got DAT, discharge air temp. And we've got cooling flow. And we've got timestamp. Okay, and then what's happening here is maybe your zone temp is 70 degrees. Your discharge air is 57. Your cooling flow is, 1200 CFM. And then your timestamp is maybe 1800, 1635. Okay? And so what's happening here is, does anyone know what this would kind of resemble or represent? Any ideas? Now remember, if we're using a SQL database, we are storing things for historical purposes. So what would we store for historical purposes? So if you're thinking maybe a trend, you're absolutely right. We would store a trend for historical purposes. So when you create a trend log and your building automation system uses SQL, then what you're doing is you are going and creating a trend database that contains a table that contains rows. Okay? So you see, we've got a table, and we can have multiple tables. We can have an air handler table. And how these database points are laid out, how these rows and columns are laid out, how these tables are set up, is called a schema. It's a database schema. Okay? And now we've got some folks on here on the Building Automation Facebook, monthly Facebook page, who all they do is they work with databases. So I really encourage you all, if you have database related questions, to post them on the Facebook page, because we have folks who, day in, day out, they're database administrators, and they're trying to get into the building automation space. And so you guys can definitely share information and help each other out. But right now, is everyone following? This is how a database works. So what happens is your building automation system. So this is your supervisory device. Connects to your field controller. And by the way, is my writing better today? Someone said last time that it was a little hard to follow, so I practiced one, but I also went and increased the size that I was using for the drawing thingamabobber. That's a technical term there. And it should be a lot clearer now. So your supervisory device and your field controller, and then this field controller, maybe it's a VAV field controller, and it's got the zone temp point, and it's got the discharge air temp point, and it's got the cooling flow point. And as these points are trended, they are then batched or streamed. Streamed means that this little happy point finds its way directly into the table. Every time that point is sampled, it goes directly into the table. That is streamed. Batched, on the other hand, is these points will go here, and then over time, they will build up in, some folks will call them a buffer, some folks will call them a repository, whatever. Some even call it the word I can never seem to spell, a queue. Well, what happens is it hits what's called a threshold. And once that threshold is hit, that batch is then deposited into the table. Okay? That is how databases work at a high level. Any questions on that before I go and I open up SQL and I kind of show you what I'm talking about? That all making sense? All right, hold on here. So let's take a look at a database. All right, so this is SQL Management Studio. Inside this database, I have a database called T-SQL 2012, which you can go download this off of Microsoft, and you can download SQL Server for free. You can get the trial version, and then we can open up one of these tables, and we can see the columns that we have, right? You can see we have employee ID. So then if I wanted to write a new query, I could say select employee ID from T-SQL dot HR. Select employee ID from. I shouldn't have to. Oh, yeah. Use. There we go. Did I spell that right? Employee ID from here. There we go. That should select my employee ID. You know, it would make sense to practice this before I do it live. But what would be the fun in that? Let's just see here. Dadgummit. Ah! I'm having a brain fart. But that's fine. Because watch. This is where stuff gets real good. Select employee ID. Booyah. See? Yeah. I did it right. Use T... Oh, gosh, I'm so stupid. It's always the little things, right? Like putting your colon in place. That kind of helps. So let's just copy this right here. Hit enter. Should be F5 if I remember correctly. And there you go. So, you learned a couple things here. One, practice any examples you're going to do before you live stream them so you don't look like an idiot. I don't take myself too seriously, so don't worry about it. Two is you can always go and Google whatever you need to know as long as you know what you're looking for. So first we're saying, hey, we want to use the T-SQL 2012 database right here, right? And I'm saying I want to select employee ID and I want to select the year and I want to order it by date and I want to call this column order year. So you see how the column is being called order year? And then I want to get a count of all of the records. That's what the wildcard is for there. And I want to do it as number orders. So whenever you see as, that is where you're renaming the column. But first you've got to grab the data before you can rename the column. Because if I try to do order year, there is no order year in here. So I wouldn't be able to go and pull order year. Then I want to say from sales.orders. Okay? So that is where I'm pulling this information from. So if I go here, I'm saying, all right, here's the sales.orders, where customer ID equals 71. So now if I were to go and split this sucker here, let me get this to split. It's not going to let me do that, is it? Should let me open a new tab. New tab. Opening. That's really weird. Oh, that's why. All right. Anyways. Select top 1,000 rows. There we go. So right here, we're saying on this, where customer ID equals 71, and then group by employee ID and year order date. So you're seeing 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So see, that's why employee ID is grouped, because it's grouped there. And then you're going to group the order date. So if there are multiple orders in 2008 for employee 1, those would be grouped. And it's saying that the count for these orders has to be greater than 1. And you want to then order it by the employee ID and the order year. Does that make sense? Does that help you guys understand how SQL works? Is that clear? Give me some feedback here. Let me know yay, nay, maybe say. All right. So, back to what we were teaching. Databases, SQL, and VPNs. I'm going to blow this out here. And we're going to do some VPN stuff. Alrighty. Virtual private networks. Now, before we go through VPNs, I want to answer a common question, which is the difference between VPNs versus VNC. So VPN is a virtual private network, whereas a VNC is a virtual network connection. What is the difference? So if you think of a virtual private network, right? With a virtual private network, you are extending the network. So here's your little happy device. This is your laptop here. And you create a VPN tunnel that, for all intents and purposes, you're now on the network. Whereas a virtual network connection is simulating an actual connection. You technically are extending the network, but it's a different way of extending the network that I'm not really going to go too deep into. But essentially, that's the big difference. All right. So let's go into how a VPN works. All right, so if you're thinking right here, this is CorpNet. And CorpNet has an external connection. Maybe it's like 62.4.8.10. I'm just making this up completely. And then that goes off to a router, which then goes off to another router. Router A, router B. And then this hits your ISP or your internet service provider, which then goes to router C, which is your home router, to your home device. Now you want this device to get all the way to here. Problem is, if you remember from last week's teaching, let me click C right here real quick. Hey Chad, good to see you on here. So if you remember from last week's teaching, whenever you go across a network, you have to work your way through the OSI model. And you have to work your way from the physical layer at layer 1 through layer 2, the media layer, and your network layer, layer 3. Now there's other layers, but that's what we're primarily concerned about in this section. Because what happens is, in each of these, your message is encapsulated. Remember your message being encapsulated, meaning that you've got a packet, and then the frame gets put on that packet. And inside that packet, you've got your source IP and your destination IP. And then that gets wrapped by your source MAC and your destination MAC. And this has to get unpacked each time it goes. Like this is network A. This would be network B. That would be network C. Network D. And then maybe this is network E. You have to go across all these different networks to get to CorpNet from host A. Well, in order to do that, you have to go and decapsulate and encapsulate each time. And you don't want someone to maybe put a sniffer, a device right here, and he's capturing all your messages. This is called a man in the middle attack, where he'll basically sit in the middle and he'll intercept all your messages and relay them through. Well, a VPN counters that by creating a virtual connection between you and CorpNet. Essentially what's happening is you're going, and even though all your messages are having to route through here, your message is encapsulated in this kind of tunnel. And so as it moves through, even if this guy tries to intercept it, he's not going to. Does that make sense? I know I'm being very high level on VPNs, but I just wanted to give you an idea. All right. How are we doing on time? It's 8:30. We're doing good. All right, I'm going to clear this off real quick. Any questions so far? Let's take a look. And next we're covering firewalls. All right, so if you recall last time we talked about how there is local traffic that uses your MAC address, network traffic that uses your IP, and then we hinted at this transport layer called layer 4 that uses TCP, UDP, and this is what's called reliable and unreliable transportation. And basically what happens is you've got this IP address, right? And let's say that IP address is 192.168.1.1. And on the end of it, you have ports. Like port 80 is a common port. It's HTTP or it's web browser port. Okay, and what's happening here is you've got this device called a firewall. And it's often, the symbols are, it's a set of bricks. And basically it's like a set of red bricks, right? And what happens is this firewall will go and look at this address and this port, and then we'll block specific addresses and ports from entering and leaving your network. So if I were to show you that, if I were to go here to Windows Firewall, not Windows Firewall Basic, but Windows Firewall Advanced, you would see, I've got some import rules. I've got something so I could play Arma 3. I've got GNS3, which is a network simulator. All sorts of stuff you can see. And things that are blocking and not blocking and just whatever. And then I can look at the actual rule. I can go and look at the properties of it. And we can see that it is saying on TCP Protocol 6, all ports, and it is letting all these ports through. I could scope it so that certain IP addresses are able or not able to access this. I can set on what part of the network I want it to apply. I can set up any remote users or computers that can use it. All sorts of stuff. Now what does this do? Well, if I go here to command prompt and I type in Netstat, I can see all of my ports that are open right now. I can see the IP address, the local IP address, and the port that it's sent to. Now, as you recall from last week's session, we talked about network address translation and how my external address is translated to this network address right here. And remember how I said TCP and UDP? Well, the only reason you're seeing TCP is TCP establishes a connection. So you wouldn't see UDP because UDP would not have a connection established. So you can see this all right here. It says established. Time wait means it's waiting for more connection, more communication. It's open and it's waiting. Any questions on that? Any thoughts? I know this is pretty deep. We went into a lot of things, but these are the kind of things you really need to know. And this is the hardest thing for folks in the building automation space to accept right now. They look at this crap and they're like, it's just IT techie crap. And then I go, okay, you know what? It's IT techie crap, right? That's great. But then I say IP building automation controllers. Type that in. Drag it over here. Oh, look, I'm ranked almost #1 on Google. That's awesome. Well, I can look here and I can see a bunch of controllers that use building automation or that use IP for their control line. And I'm not going to get into the benefits of IP versus non-IP or PoE versus non-PoE. That's power over Ethernet. The point is, you're not going to be able to use this excuse much longer, folks. You're going to have to learn IT stuff. If you don't learn the IT stuff, it's going to be like when pneumatics switched over to DDC. You're going to be a guy who's not in a whole lot of demand anymore. I'm just saying it. I'm being real. You may not like what I'm saying, but it's the reality. You've got to learn some of these fundamental IT skills. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to work on the future stuff. Now, don't let that scare you. Because, look, I've got a business degree. I was in the military as a weapons specialist. I figured this stuff out. You can figure it out too. It's just a matter of laying out what you don't know and then identifying the gaps and closing those gaps. and not trying to learn everything all at once. Take your time. You'll figure this out. You just pick up the basics, and we'll continue to go through this stuff, and we'll get this stuff more formalized, and we'll get you there. We'll get you to where you need to be. So it's nothing to freak out about, but it is something to be cautiously aware of. All right. So that's the network teaching. That is what we're going to cover on networks. Now we're going to move into the final couple pieces. But before I do that, I want to pause, see if we've got any questions so far. Any questions on what I've said? So whether you're watching this live or you're watching this on YouTube later, I got a couple questions for you now. What do you think of the new teaching format? Do you like the new teaching format? Is it helpful? What do you think of the new slide deck? What can I improve? I want to continuously improve this teaching so that it's impactful to you. I want to help you learn, and I need the feedback to be able to do that more effectively. All right. It's everyone's favorite time. It's question and answer time. So get your questions ready. All right. So I'm going to pause for a second, let you form any questions you may have, and then I will answer those questions to the best of my ability. Like, Phil, why didn't you prepare before you went into SQL Management Studio? Well, that's a good question. That's because you're getting this for free and it's a live stream. Be thankful. At least I showed you how you cannot prepare and still figure things out. So, that being said, what else do you want to know? Paul's here. You can just go and post in the comments. And while you are doing that, I am going to not have a sip of water because apparently I drank all my water. But I'm going to take what's left. And I'm going to switch back to my wonderful looking self, if I may say so myself. There we go. Questions going once, going twice. All right. And there is no such thing as a dumb question. There's only people who don't ask questions and make dumb decisions. All right. So, final. What's coming up next? It's getting real. All right. Coming up in the month of September and October, I am redoing my most popular article, which was titled, What is Tritium? And it's based on all the changes that have occurred. And for you lucky folks that are on the podcast, on the live stream, I'm going to show you kind of what to expect, what it's going to look like. So here it is. Let's go here into the posts. Let's go here. So this is what the new article is going to look like. I'm slowly building it out. This kind of gives you an idea how I do things. I go in, I preload a lot of stuff, I lay out an outline, and this is kind of what I'm going to talk through. Oh, what is the Niagara framework? What is it? What's the architecture? How's it configured? Their distribution model. So there's a lot of folks who have questions, and you know, there's just a lot of misinformation out there. So I figured I would go through and update my article on that. Next, I said I'm writing a special article that will dive deep into APIs and will show how to use the APIs to tie together to a BAS and a weather station. And that was asked in my last live stream was how do you tie together a BAS and a weather station? And I will be writing an article on that. Now, today's teaching is going to be the last IT teaching. Next week's teaching is going to start talking about HVAC and electrical systems. We're going to start going through controls fundamentals and control logic. So now news will be coming about my new audio course on evaluating BASs, and I'll also be starting to get ready to launch my new flagship course focused on preparing folks to either enter the BAS field or shore up any skill gaps they have in the BAS field. So keep an eye out for that one. It's only going to have 30 slots on it when I roll it out, but I'm going to be doing those. And the purpose behind that is, one, for folks who are trying to understand the capabilities of their building automation or someone else's building automation system. This will be very helpful. So if you're in sales or operations or management, that will be a very helpful course for you. Then the flagship course is going to be focused on folks who are either new technicians or trying to be a technician. And I'm going to go through my 12-step roadmap to teach them that. So nothing to buy right now. Just be aware that stuff's going to be coming down the pipe. And if you're interested, you'll see that coming across in the email. And if you don't take advantage of it, or if you do, doesn't really matter. I'm going to still continue to put out the same good, free, quality content out there. This is just for you guys who want to take stuff to the next level. That'll be out there if you want to take advantage of it. And with that, I think we are done. So, any questions, thoughts, comments? I'll wait around for a couple seconds and see if anyone has anything they would like to ask. Man, oh, sorry. It's late. All right, folks. Have a good one. I will see all of you later, and I'll be posting this on Facebook in a little bit. Or Facebook, wow. You can tell I'm a little tired. I'll be posting it on YouTube in a little bit. So thank you for hanging out with me tonight. And give me feedback. Continue to let me know how I can make this impactful. And do me a favor, share this with your friends. Share this with your coworkers. Spread the word. The more folks we can help enter the building automation field, the better. Until next time, remember to get your learn on. That's Phil Zito. Peace out.